that the topic that Fran will be speaking on tonight is inclusion is intentional, and look forward to what she has to share with her journey over her long career. So maybe I'm going to stop sharing, Fran, and I'll throw it to you. And again, we will take questions as we go and through the chat group and at the end of the meeting as well. So see if I can stop sharing here.
All right, let's see if I can start sharing. So let's get this right. That's the one I want to share. Okay. There we go.
And so just a quick question, Fran, would you like me to bring up questions as they come along during the presentation, or do you want us to wait till the end?
I'm happy to start as we kind of go through, and then we can, then if it's taking too much time, Colin, I lean on you to make sure that I'm not going on too long and talking too much. So let's see. Why don't we see how it goes, and then we can go from there. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So first and foremost, thank you, everybody, for inviting me, first of all. And so tonight, or this evening, I guess, what I'll share with you is kind of what I've learned so far in terms of my journey around diversity and inclusion, and most importantly, what we're doing at Vale across the globe to deliberately and intentionally become much more diverse and inclusive. And I guess I want to start with
sorry, Fran, I'm going to interrupt once,
yeah.
So we can switch to the presentation mode. We're looking at your preview slide.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great.
So let's just go back there for a second. So, you know, when I was interviewing for Vale, you know, as Colin shared in my background, I'm new to mining. I'm about a month in, almost a half. Sorry, a year and almost a half in into Vale, and so it's been a very interesting journey. But kind of having my own, you know, blind spots about mining and my perception of it, and as well as being a Brazilian-owned organization. As I was going through the interview process, what was really important to me was to understand where Vale stood in terms of diversity and inclusion, because as a gay woman myself, who I came out of the closet over 20 years ago, you know, I spent a lot of time, you know, becoming my authentic self. And so it was really important for me to know what I was kind of getting into. And what has been very delightful for me was, you know, unequivocally, when I asked that question of the head of HR for base metals, the head of HR for global, and the head of, the chief operating officer for North Atlantic, there wasn't even a split hesitation. It was like, Fran, absolutely, we want you to be your authentic self, and we actually are on a journey to become even more authentic in terms of our diversity and inclusion. So that was a year and a little bit, almost a year and a half ago, and so I'm obviously loving the journey that we're on as an organization. I'm so delighted to be part of our journey and to share that tonight with you. And so you can see from Vale's perspective, you know, it is time, and in many ways you could say we're behind the times, but we've made the very declarative and intentional decision that it's time to add difference, and that through difference, that will make all the difference for us as an organization as we move forward. And it's no surprise, right? Because the world is changing, and it's changing even faster and even more rapidly, ironically, as we continue to live with COVID-19. And specifically from a workforce perspective, you know, we've got greater diverse populations that are happening. We have multiple generations in the workforce. People are remaining in the workforce longer than previous times. And we also have a variety of different work arrangements. You know, a rising contingency workforce, people looking for greater flexibility in terms of how and when they do their work. So the world is changing, and we really need to keep change and change with it. And you know, as we talk about and look at diversity and inclusion, you know, it really does begin to have a domino effect. And so the greater understanding that we have of differences leads to really our ability in terms of accepting value, and most importantly, engaging all kinds of differences. And that's becoming a real important attraction and sustainment aspect for talent. And so let's just talk a little bit about so what is diversity and what is inclusion? You know, so diversity very simply means difference. And it's difference in many dimensions. It's not just what we see, but more importantly, it's what we don't see, you know. And the key is that in order to be and to strive to be an organization of inclusion, and even just as an individual, to be a much more inclusive and open individual, you know, we have to fundamentally believe that also all differences matter. And for inclusion is really our ability at leveraging differences, and through leveraging those differences, being able to create better results, creating better environment where all people feel and are valued. And this is a really important, what has become, I think, a guiding principle for me in my life, because I fundamentally believe that we spend so much time with each other at work that it's such a shame that we don't get the best out of each other, and it's so important that everyone feels valued and that they have value to contribute. So that's kind of a general starting pace of diversity inclusion. Vale, I was obviously over the moon when kind of 6 months in, Vale very clearly declared their desire to become an authentic and inclusive organization. And that commitment was, you know, really clearly all about the importance of it, you know, being a strategic driver for the organization. And more importantly, our commitment that we made in terms of ensuring that we've got environments of respect so that people can be their authentic selves, that we've got safe environments where people can voice their opinions, share ideas, challenge what's happening, that we have transparent, fair, and bias-free processes in terms of who we hire, how we evaluate, how we promote, and how we continue to engage and leverage a diverse workforce. Absolutely zero tolerance of any kind of harassment, discrimination, or prejudice. And that we're constantly stimulating debate, and we're raising awareness around diversity, because from awareness comes learning, and from learning comes acceptance, and from acceptance we're able to leverage each other's difference to get to greater places of collaboration, as well as innovation and creativity. So, you know, it hasn't even been a year, and I think what's very exciting is Vale has been very, very deliberate and intentional in terms of becoming that authentic and inclusive organization. It started in December. We first launched our Women's Affinity Group, but we were very clear in the declaration that we made on Vale Day to our commitment. We went to the markets and we said we are committing to doubling our female representation within 10 years. I think we're going to blow that out of the water. It's going to be much sooner than that, but that's the commitment to the market. And then we've had a whole host of activity this year that has ranged from what I call energizing the organization around specific diversity and inclusion initiatives, from celebrating and coordinating grassroots campaigns around International Women's Day, to leveraging the launch of the LGBTQ affinity group, and then having tremendous grassroots educational workshops, webinars around the LGBTQ community, ensuring that our systemic processes, so ensuring that as we energize the organization and have fun and celebrate and come to understand everybody's differences, there's also changes that we're making from an institutional perspective in the organization. So beginning to ensure that our behaviors are aligned with a much more inclusive organization, looking at recruitment practices, selection practices, promotion practices, all of that. And also beginning to shift mindsets, and shift mindsets is an incredibly first step for us. And so we achieve that through a lot of sessions where we're introducing diversity and inclusion. We're talking about different types of diversity and inclusion, and you know, sponsoring and hosting an incredible amount of webinars, as you can see here, in terms of our inclusion agenda. And so we've had a tremendous amount of success already. We have 15% of women in leadership roles. We've, you know, our trainee program, we were very deliberate and intentional in making sure we were putting in the effort required to make sure we were having a 50-50 split in terms of the young talent that we're attracting and bringing in to the organization. We've been very focused on also frontline mining in terms of being very deliberate in recruitment campaigns and recruitment programs to bring women into the mining industry in order to begin to build a talent pipeline that is more diverse. And so you can see a whole host of activity and a lot of really great wins just within pretty much the first kind of 10 months so far into the year. So some great work that we've done, and don't get me wrong, we're on a journey and we still have a lot of work to do, but a lot of intentional work that we've done in order to accelerate our journey. I just wanted to share with you a few examples of some of the women that we have around the world in terms of leadership positions. Tracy is our Vale president in China. Sheila is our communication manager in Mozambique. Diane is our supervisor of processing plants and control in Indonesia. Rhiannon is our business support superintendent in the UK. And we have Narusada as our expert inspection supervisor. We have Helene as our electronical engine technician. Nicole is our shaft supervisor in Canada, and in Oman, head of our environment, Jalila. So some really great progress, and again, you know, some really deliberate actions that we're taking. I want to talk a little bit specifically about more around Canada and what we're doing in Canada to begin to address some of our key areas of diversity and inclusion. And you know, what was really interesting for me, because I wasn't in mining, I haven't been part of that history, is that you know, I was not aware that until as early as 1978, Canadian women it was not until 1978 that Canadian women were actually permitted to work underground in mines. And I was like, wow, that's not that long ago, you know. And so, you know, we do have, women are extremely underrepresented, in particular in our mines, less than 3% in our mines. in our operations in Ontario. And so that is absolutely where we're taking a very deliberate approach and action towards improving our gender balance in our operations. And so I want to dive a little bit deep into gender because this is where we've progressed so far, most of the work, and share with you a little bit of the approach that we're taking and what we're seeing coming out of that. So from a gender perspective, we've actually partnered with Barbara Annis and her gender intelligence group. And what gender intelligence is all about is it's basically that understanding through neuroscience that the way in which our brains are wired and actually even structured actually creates in us inherent tendencies in terms of the differences between men and women, and how those differences begin to play out and impact the way in which we communicate, the way we lead, the way we problem solve, the way we make decisions, the way we communicate, the very fundamental way we communicate. And so we've started this work with Barbara, and I just want to share a bit of it with you. And so I want to be clear here that when we talk about gender intelligence and we talk about the complementary differences that men and women bring to organizations, we're not talking about stereotypes. Okay, so it's inaccurate to claim that men and women are the same, and it's also inaccurate to say that we're completely different. You know, there's a spectrum. Okay, there's the bell curve around tendencies. What gender intelligence focuses on is the prevalent tendencies are what is meaningful, and it's worth us understanding and valuing those tendencies. And you know, one of the pieces that the gender intelligence group and Barbara shares is, you know, again, you know, sticking to kind of science and facts. You know, here's a brain scan, and the brain scan of the female is on the left and the male brain scan is on the right. And you know, both brains are at rest. And so just some kind of interesting observations. And so for kind of all the women on the call and for all the men, you know, often when we come home from our days and they've been very, very busy, men will kind of shut off. Okay, so women, when we ask our male partners or brothers or fathers, you know, hey, you know, how was your day, or what are you thinking, especially the what are you thinking, because the what are you thinking is often followed by nothing. And of course, as women, we think, well, it can't be nothing. You were at work all day. How can you not be thinking about anything? But the science behind this is that for men to replenish and for men to replenish testosterone, their brain actually shuts down to enable that to happen. And for women, women's brains are actually wired much differently in men. And so there's a lot more synapses that's constantly going on back and forth. And so for women, when our brain is at rest, you can see much more activity there. But for women, that's how we also want to rest. We want to engage. We want to talk. You know, how was your day? We want to share. You know, here's what my day was like. You know, and what did you think of this? And you know, what about the kids? And what are we doing tomorrow around childcare? And da 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 da. So when we can start to understand that we have these differences and that we have these different needs, even just the simple thing of coming home to each other, okay, can shape a whole new experience with one another. Whereas, you know, the male partner in the relationship can say, hey, you know what, honey, I just need 30 minutes to kind of decompress, and I'll be right back here with you, and let's talk through what it is you want to share with me. So I'll just pause there actually to get any reactions or comments on that. Did it resonate with anybody on the call?
There was one comment, Fran, from Patty Pegues, stating that the Pegues house agrees with this after work story. Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Thank you, Patty. Okay. You know, and the reason that we've gone down the path of becoming a more gender intelligent organization to create greater gender balance is first and foremost in what I found in my journey around gender intelligence is that because it's science-based and data-based, and there's a whole host of research that sits behind the data, is that it disarms the conversation. And you know what we have found in sessions is that in particular, men don't feel blamed for the lack of progress of women in the workforce, and women feel heard and validated. And so when we build on that, we start to realize advantages of a gender intelligent organization. And no surprise, and no surprise to you on the phone, I'm sure, when we build more diverse and inclusive organizations, we have huge improvements in innovation and decision making. We are much better to be able to understand the needs and therefore respond more comprehensively to the clients and markets in which we work. We begin to create an inclusive leadership approach whereby engagement, connectedness, relationships, communication are much more valued and effective. Fundamentally, we minimize risk and costs. And specific to our mining industry, greater gender balanced teams significantly reduce safety incidents. So to the tune, I think it was 83% safety incidents were reduced on a rig off of the coast of Florida when they introduced greater gender balanced teams, because it fundamentally got in and it started to change the culture around kind of minimizing what is often described as kind of a cowboy or a brother approach in terms of culture. And it's like, you know, cowboy and that'll never happen to me. I can take the risk. I can do this. It really started to change the culture. And then ultimately, what all of those lead to is superior financial performance. When we can get people, when everybody feels valued and they have value to give and that they feel heard, and that we're much more collaborative in terms of our approach to decision making, it's kind of a no-brainer that we get superior financial performance. And so, you know, just wanted to share with you some of the top challenges for the genders that's based on a whole host of research coming out of the Gender Intelligence Group in partnership with a host of consulting organizations who also do a lot of work in this space. But over, you know, kind of the period of thousands of sessions and research, top challenges for women come into kind of 4 categories. So women often feel excluded from conversations in the workplace. They often feel that their ideas are dismissed, sometimes not even heard. They feel an expectation to fit in, to be one of the guys. And overall, that leads to experiencing kind of being devalued by the organization. And for men most often feel confused over the rules of civility. Like, I can't win. What the hell can I say? Can't I say? Careful in language and behavior. Dealing with emotions is a real challenge for men. You know, it's not that men don't care. They just don't know what to do about it. So they need to go and find somebody to help a woman who is upset or emotional or crying, to help that person. It's not about being ill-intended. And most importantly, men feel blamed for women not advancing. And so as we are on our journey in Vale, and in particular right now in Canada, you know, these are the common challenges we're actually uncovering as we continue our journey of becoming a more gender intelligent and gender balanced organization. And while we're only starting with gender, okay, when we become more gender intelligent, we become more inclusive. And so what that does is it accelerates all inclusion across the board for us. So just to give you kind of a sense, a bit of a sense on capitalizing on complementary skills. And this data is from a global survey of over 9,000 leaderships that measure 9 leadership behaviors that improve organizational performance. And here's kind of how they line up. Women tend to apply more, people development, setting of expectations and rewards, and role modeling behavior and values. Women apply slightly more inspiration and participative decision making. Women and men apply equally intellectual stimulation and effective, efficient communication. Men apply more individualistic decision making. So 1, 2, 3, give me the options. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And performance management. And so the important piece here is that this is not about right or wrong or good or bad. This is fundamentally about difference. And if we can acknowledge those differences, understand those differences, and even better, leverage those differences based on different situations that we may be encountering in our day-to-day life, the more effective and the more inclusive we will be. And so that's kind of where we're at in terms of the gender approach we're taking for base metals, and specifically right now the work we're doing in Canada. But we also know that we have other areas that we need to have greater diversity and therefore continue our journey around inclusion. From a local talent perspective, we have not been as inclusive as we could be. And you know, in Voisey's Bay, our operation in Labrador, we were very, very deliberate and intentional in terms of how we were going to launch and run that organization. And as a result, you can see here that 43% of the population in Voisey's Bay are of Indigenous people. And they are represented as 44% of our workforce. So such huge learnings for us to take and apply to Manitoba, Thompson in Manitoba, and to Sudbury. So, so again, we're very much on a journey, and we're in the process of developing the team and the plan to address and improve our local talent presence. And then the next pillar for us will be ethnicity. And it's not that we don't work with all the other aspects of diversity, but these are the particular 3 areas whereby we will be very deliberate and very intentional in terms of our plans over the next 12 to 24 months. And so, you know, I'm just really thrilled and delighted to be here to kind of share with you the journey that we're on in becoming an authentically inclusive company. And it really is because we are taking those very deliberate and very intentional actions, because we can say all the words that we want to say and have all the nice phrases, but until we act and we actually start to change behavior and show up and be our authentic selves, that's what's mattered, and that's the journey that we're still very much on. And before I go to questions, there's just 2 things I'd love to share with you guys. So, you know, most importantly, inclusion is intentional, okay? And likewise, exclusion is non-intentional, okay? So inclusion is intentional, and if we just practiced 4 simple acts in our day-to-day lives, we can actually start to change our own behavior in terms of how can we be more open and more inclusive. And so the 4 things that I try to do, and I don't do them all the time, but I try to do them, is that first and foremost, I make no assumptions and I assume positive intent, okay? I really try to stand in the other person's shoes, especially if there's a disagreement. And it's so help me understand how you're seeing this. Help me understand why you're feeling that way. So really intentionally and deliberately trying to put myself in the other person's shoes. Being interested versus interesting. So important, truly being in the moment and truly listening and caring about the person that you're interacting with or that you're sitting across from. And finally, declare your intentions. So our interactions, our relationships with people are 2 ways. And so we also need to own our own intentions. And this was a really big learning for me. I'll share one quick story and then I promise I'll wrap up, Colin. When I worked at Loblaw, I had a great boss. And I noticed that when I would come to him with a problem, he would just jump to solution mode. And it was driving me crazy because he wasn't actually listening to me. And so one day I finally just said, hey, Mark, here's what I need from you. Okay, I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of challenges that I've got. And what I would ask of you is to just hear me out. Let me fully explain to you what the problem is, and let me share with you my thinking. And then I'd love for you to chip in and provide me your feedback and direction. And just that one little change in terms of making sure I declared my intent to Mark completely changed our relationship. You know, and you know, we would joke about it back and forth, but it fundamentally changed our relationship for the better, for the much better, I might add. And the last thing that I want to close with is, you know, started out the discussion talking about how much change is happening, and the reality is that the world is changing, and the world is changing, and Vale is changing with the world. And so, you know, please come evolve with us. We're on a journey, but it's a great journey. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Francinne. And we'll take an opportunity now to open up the floor to some questions, and I'll read them out as they come in, and we'll try and get to everyone. So please, if you look to the little speaking bubble that you find in a comic strip, if you click that, you can join the chat room, and I'll relay the questions to Fran. So the question here, Francinne, from Ed Toivonen. How has inclusivity and diversity benefited Vale and other organizations that you have been associated with?
So it's improved it. You know, first and foremost, I think what's so important for our industry, for mining, is the safety component, and we're actually even starting to see it in early days in terms of the women miners program that we started in Sudbury, and actually them calling out unsafe acts and really promoting safety. The key, though, and I think the biggest benefit that I've seen over my career and in different industries is really around unlocking discretionary effort. If we're able to create inclusive organizations where people truly feel valued and that they really have a sense of belonging, then they're engaged. They're engaged in a positive way. And that positive engagement is what unlocks discretionary effort. And that's the key to everything that we need to achieve. Safety and risk measures, production targets, or overall profitability. it's really being able to create an environment where we, through inclusion, we're able to unlock discretionary effort and through people feeling very valued. And it's magical, guys. Like when it happens, it's amazing. You know, people can't wait to get out of bed in the morning to go to work. And I know that maybe sounds hokey, but I've seen it, and I've been part of teams that thrive in it. And we have, and at Vale, there's so much opportunity, you know, to go from good to great in the space and really engage in relationships with people and move out of the transaction game and move into much more relationship-based arrangements with our people. And that's where the inclusion is key.
Great, thank you. A question from Dan Lang. It has been reported that the pandemic has had a major negative impact on the gains that women have made to this point in the workforce, and that it will take years to recover. Do you see this within Vale? Any differences between Canada and global operations?
So the first question, yeah, I mean, we're certainly concerned. We've seen, I think it was in the papers, how old am I? It was on the news, you know, that I think it was 865,000 women have left the U.S. workforce in order to take care of their kids. Basically, they've had to choose as a result of COVID. We have not seen that exodus anywhere actually across Vale. I would say with COVID-19, our broader concern has been around work-life balance, as most organizations, because ironically, it feels like we're spending more time online and in meetings than we were pre-COVID. And so our biggest focus right now around COVID-19 has really been around mental health and overall well-being, making sure that we're doing all that we can to promote, enable, and sponsor mental health and wellness in general as we continue to move through COVID-19. And specific to your last question around diversity and inclusion, we actually are taking an in-country approach. We recognize that different countries across our operations are at different stages of their journey around diversity and inclusion. And so we actually are in the process of creating our in-country plans. Brazil has done a fabulous job with gender over the last year in terms of creating new pipelines for women in the mining industry, which obviously Vale is a massive player in Brazil. And we're beginning to turn our attention to local talent there. In Indonesia, we likewise also have a country-specific plan around that. So we're it's different where our operations are.
Great, thanks. I'm going to apologize. I will likely get the pronunciation wrong here, but from Jomer has a question. Does Vale has an action plan to address the lack of Black people in leadership positions, especially Black female leadership?
So do we have a plan yet? No. Is it part of our inclusion agenda? Absolutely. And you can see ethnicity. So gender, local talent, and ethnicity, specifically focusing on the Black population and improving our diversity there. Is absolutely a focus of the agenda into 2021.
Great. And a question from Julia. How do you accurately measure diversity as an employer when it is based on voluntary self-reporting only? And how do you encourage self-reporting?
So this is actually one of the challenges that we're dealing with right now. So I don't have an answer for you. In the past, when I was at Loblaw, we would run kind of campaigns, grassroots campaigns to encourage people to self-disclose. And it was obviously part of our engagement survey. And it was interesting because one of the findings that we had is as we rolled out both the combination of culture change and becoming a more inclusive organization towards gender balance, what we ended up finding, and this was only a 2-year period, was a 10% increase in people's people's willingness to self-declare around the LGBTQ disclosure and around being considered an ethnic minority. And so that was a pretty significant jump in just it wasn't even 2 years, it was about, I think it was about 1 year and 4 months. And what's key to that is that people trust you. Because when people trust you, then they'll share and they'll disclose and they'll want to share their difference because they know it's a safe space and that they're valued.
Absolutely. So I'm going to offer one last chance for some more questions before I pass it on to Rich Levere to say a few words on behalf of the sponsorship. So are there any other questions? Okay, so Francinne, on behalf of the CIM, thank you very much for donating your time to this event. I know there was great appreciation from all of our membership and everyone that joined tonight. And then I'd like to introduce to the microphone next. If you can see my
Thanks
screen.
so much, guys. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks, Colin.
Is Richard Levere there on the line with us?
Yes, good evening or good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Good, good. Well, first of all, welcome to Sudbury, Francinne. I think you're relatively new to our area and to the nickel capital of the world. But we thank you for taking the time to share your expertise on the worthy subject of diversity and inclusion. And thank you for speaking to us here at CIM today. So whether you're an employer or a job seeker, Levere offers professional staffing, industry-focused training, and personnel services. Our team of recruiters, consultants, and administrators serve employers and job seekers not only locally but across many provinces in Canada and abroad. We continue to grow nationally and internationally. We are proud of our commitment to quality. At Levere, safety is the #1 priority, and that's just not a phrase that we use, but one that we certainly adhere to. That's why we ensure our clients' companies are provided with the best prepared workers, and that job candidates are thoroughly screened and attend workplace safety training to meet and exceed employee expectations. Our corporate clients are in the mining industry, the smelting and refinery, oil and gas, to name a few. If you're an employer, we'll source, test, and select reliable tradespeople and skilled workers to fill your vacancies in short-term positions, such as support personnel for maintenance shutdowns. All this with a worry-free, complete payroll service. If you're a job seeker, and I'm speaking to our students here today, if you're a job seeker and you're looking for a future in the mining industry, we can get you going and we can get you started. And we can source full-time and part-time fly-in, fly-out camps, for instance, temporary or contract work opportunities to suit your needs. And for students seeking part-time work, our summer employment, Levere can find the job that suits your schedule. So in closing, I'd like to acknowledge the crucial role of CIM Sudbury branch in building public awareness about the industry and helping students such as yourselves to pursue their dreams. And that, unfortunately this year we could not meet face to face, but last year I met many of you, and we were the proud sponsors last year as well. And I can't stress enough to you to continue your worthwhile journey into the mining industry. It's an exciting one. I've been in it for all of my life, and I wish I could say I was a young guy like you or a young girl like yourselves, but I'm not. And I've been at it for a long time, and it's been very rewarding to me. So pursue that dream and and learn it well, because there's a lot of great talent to be had and to be learned. And as Francinne is so gracefully shared with us, the diversity between the workers is so needed in this industry, and we must continue to fulfill this area. So it's an honor for Vale to sponsor this student event and to witness firsthand the dedication to mentoring tomorrow's leaders and innovators. We all share a passion for mining, so important to our community, so important to our country, and a very strong future for the industry. So the students, please move forward and make a great career of it, and be very proud of what you're doing, as our guest speaker so spoke of. So thank you, and we're a very proud sponsor. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Richard. And on behalf of the CIM, we appreciate greatly your contribution this month and your ongoing annual contributions to the organization. It goes a long way in helping us keep our functions happening month on month and every year. So can't thank you enough personally. So this concludes the evening. I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. And quick reminder that we have a double speaker on November 19th in Tammy Eager and Julie Moskaluk, and that'll be again a digital presentation of a GIM on November 19th, and that'll be the final meeting for this calendar year, and we'll be picking back up again on January 21st of next year for our. Hopefully, we can find a way to have a panel discussion like we've been doing the last couple of years. So, again, thank you everyone for attending on behalf of the Sudbury CIM branch, and we look forward to seeing you again on November 19th. Thanks again, and have a great night.